Live from Bryant-Denny Stadium with special guests, feature stories, and a comprehensive look at Alabama's upcoming game. It's Crimson Tide Kickoff on WVUA 23. Brought to you by Alpha.
First thing they're going to get asked 20 years from now is what was your record against Tennessee?
Just heard Alabama head coach Nick Saban talking about the importance of this game. It's a rivalry game. Good morning, everybody, and happy game day. I'm Gary Harris, live on the University of Alabama campus. You're watching Crimson Tide Kickoff, presented by Alpha Insurance. It's the third Saturday in October, and even though it's not played every year on the third Saturday in October anymore, it is this year. You know what that means. Top-ranked Alabama hosting the rival Tennessee Volunteers tonight inside Bryant-Denny Stadium. So let's get started. We'll have live guest feature stories, analysis, and more coming up in the next hour, always right here on CTKO. We'll begin, as we do every week, with our Bama Headlines.
For the latest on the Crimson Tide, you don't need the newspaper. You need Bama Headlines.
It's one of the biggest rivalries in Alabama football, dubbed Tennessee Hate Week by many. Hear how coaches and players feel about this special game. And it's the first Crimson Tide night game. The wait is finally over. Fans can see the newly installed Bryant-Denny LED lights this evening. We'll tell you what fans are excited for most when it comes to the nighttime kickoff. And I can't talk about the third Saturday in October and not mention the cigar tradition. Well, do you know who started this tradition? Most credit former Alabama head athletics trainer, the late Jim Goosetree. His son, Jimmy Tom, will join us live on the program. Well, history shows that when Alabama and Tennessee meet on the gridiron, at least one team will be in the current Associated Press or Amway coaches poll. This year, no exception, Alabama ranked number one. This season marks the 12th straight year the Crimson Tide has faced the Volunteers ranked in the top 10. Let's look into this series history. It may come as no surprise that Alabama leads all time, but it was close there for a while. Alabama's kind of pulled out thanks to the 12 wins in a row under Nick Saban. Today marks the 102nd time these two teams will meet. Alabama leads 56 wins, 37 losses, and 8 ties all time. Tennessee is searching for their first win over Alabama since 2006. And Alabama was leading the first 56-plus minutes of that game up in Knoxville under Mike Shula till Tennessee pulled it out 16-13. Furthermore, Alabama, as I said, has won the last 12 games, including a 45-7 win the last time these two teams played at Bryant-Denny Stadium in 2017. Alabama head coach Nick Saban is 14-1 in his career against Tennessee, including an undefeated 12-0 record at Alabama. Last year at Neyland Stadium, he beat the Vols 58-21. The Tide's head coach is one of 8 Alabama coaches to win his first game against Tennessee. Gene Stallings also had that honor, among others, in 1990. Saban says it's a big game against an up-and-coming football team.
This game is a big game because it's the game that we're having this week. It's a rivalry game. And like I said before, I think this team has much improved and kind of a team on the rise.
And as I said earlier, some have dubbed it Tennessee Hate Week, although I don't know if the hate's quite as strong after 12 wins in a row. And it was 12 years ago, in 2007, when former WVUA 23 intern Nick Adam interviewed an Alabama fan, and not just any Alabama fan. This one had a distinct way of describing his feelings for Tennessee. It went viral, and it goes viral about this time every October.
I just hate them because they low down, they dirty, they some snitches. And I hate Philip Farmer. I hate their colors. I'm not a dog person. I just hate Tennessee, man.
That video never gets old. You probably know, if you're an Alabama fan, that the Tide has played Tennessee a lot more than Alabama has played Auburn. Of course, Alabama and Auburn went between 1908 and 1948 and didn't play at all. And for many, this rivalry against Tennessee is still the biggest on Alabama's schedule. CTKO's Rhea Thornton is live on the Walk of Champions. And Rhea, I know in the past decade it hasn't been much of a rivalry with Alabama dominating. Most of the Crimson Tide players were too young to even remember the last time Tennessee won. What else did they have to say about this game and this long-time rivalry?
Well, as the cooler temperatures arrive in Tuscaloosa, so do the rivalries. Obviously, you can see that there are not many people on the Walk of Champions right now, but that will all change soon. Tennessee will be taking the field in Bryant-Denny later on tonight for the battle between the SEC East and the SEC West.
And so it begins. The rivalry, the tradition, the epic battle between two SEC teams. Tennessee has traveled to Tuscaloosa, and it is not just the fans that are eager for the upcoming game.
This rivalry has been emphasized since the start of the week, and I'm really excited to kind of embrace it and see what it's like.
I'm very excited just to get back out there with the guys and just showcase. I know it's a tradition here.
Although the Crimson Tide players are ready for this game, it seems as though the true rivalry between these two teams has begun to fade, with Alabama going for its 13th consecutive win over the Volunteers.
I mean, I never really grew up, an Alabama fan or a Tennessee fan, but I do know how much it means to a lot of the fans, especially for the people that grew up, understanding the Alabama and Tennessee tradition and the rivalry, how that works. And it's a big deal. It's almost like, Auburn and Alabama, so it's a big deal.
Despite the current players' ages making them too young to understand the true nature of this Tennessee hate week, both Nick Saban and Jeremy Pruitt obviously do.
Anybody that's been associated with this rivalry over their lifetime, right? It's a pretty special event. The third Saturday in October, the third week of October. So whether you're on the Tennessee side, the Alabama side, kind of all the old heads, so to speak, this is the rivalry, right? So this is the game.
With the big anticipation of the upcoming rivalry game, Alabama will be taking the field as if UT is a ranked opponent. Head coach Nick Saban says it isn't wise to overlook anyone in college football.
I think all you have to do is look at the, South Carolina-Georgia game and sort of figure out that anybody, if you don't play well every week, if you play poorly and the other team plays well against you, and you turn over and make mistakes, anybody can beat anybody.
According to Nick Saban, Tennessee is an emerging team with great discipline. It is important for the Tide to be ready to compete later on tonight. Live from the Walk of Champions for CTKO, I'm Rhea Thornton. Back to you, Gary.
Thank you, Rhea. The thing that stands out to me watching your story is that, Alabama has dominated the rivalry since 2007. There's no denying that, but still, it's pageantry. It's the orange and white versus the crimson and white. And even for the Tennessee fans, I promise you, I think realize what the outcome is most likely going to be tonight, but they're still excited. They still want to believe, and that's what great rivalries are all about. And it'll be happening tonight under the lights, and we've already got some fall-type weather, finally, for football here in Tuscaloosa. CTKO weather specialist Chelsea Aaron is on the Walk of Champions with a look at our game day forecast. She joins us now live. Chelsea?
Yeah, Gary, you wanted fall weather, you got it. And you wanted a evening game, you got that as well. Currently right now, a little breezy, so it's feeling quite cooler than it should feel. But as we look at those temperatures, you can see we're going to be pleasant all day. You can see temperatures across the southeast are going to be in those lower to mid 60s right now. We have our game day forecast right here. You can see by kickoff we have a few isolated showers still lingering around. You can see we're going to be in the upper 60s, but as we go into kickoff by 8 p.m. we're going to be lowering into those lower 60s, so you might need a light jacket. And then by the end of the game, you see we're going to be dropping into those lower 50s. But taking a look at our next graphic, again, we've had some rain on radar, but still those temperatures still lingering around in the upper 60s. And as we take a look at our futurecast at that rain, you can see we're going to begin to taper off as we go into the afternoon. But hey, we'll be ending with a victory, hopefully. Back to you, Gary.
Thank you, Chelsea. Sounds like if you're planning on attending the game tonight, you might want to bring a light windbreaker. Could be a little cool. Well, still to come on Crimson Tide Kickoff, we'll have more analysis, feature stories, and live guests. The game isn't the only show fans will see tonight. CTKO's Julia Westerman will tell us about Bryant-Denny Stadium's newly installed LED lights when we return to CTKO, presented by Alpha Insurance. And welcome back to Crimson Tide Kickoff, presented by Alpha Insurance. No surprise here, Alabama is number one again. The Tide certainly accustomed to that so far this Nick Saban era. It's been commonplace. Alabama unbeaten going into today's Week 8 matchup, tied at 6-0 thus far overall and 3-0 in SEC play. The storyline this season has been about the unstoppable Crimson Tide offense. But like I said, it's Week 8. We're halfway through the season, and Alabama head coach Nick Saban says what his team is working on now is making sure that nobody is getting tired of the repetition and they stay focused on the task at hand.
Good. I think the real thing that we're trying to emphasize, this week with our players is to really pay attention to detail. I think about this time of the year is when players get a little bit tired of practicing. They get a little bit bored of same kind of repetitions over and over and over, doing a lot of the same drills. But, you can't lose your focus. And because when you do, you don't pay attention to detail, you create bad habits, which they start showing up on the field.
Well, Tennessee, on the other hand, is unranked, obviously, and has a losing record so far at 2-4 overall, 1-2 in the SEC. Now, they've had some struggles, including injuries to key players. For example, last week, freshman quarterback Brian Maurer suffered concussion against Mississippi State. His status for tonight is questionable. Tonight's competition will be tough for the Vols, clearly. And Tennessee head coach Jeremy Pruitt knows a thing or two about Alabama, and he also realizes Alabama's a great team.
In Alabama, I think, probably one of the best teams in the entire country, obviously. Starts with their quarterback and wide receivers. There'd be very few NFL teams that probably could rival that part. I said this last year, and I'll say it again this year. They have to really work hard not to score 100 points a game. They have to work hard, and Coach Saban's been kind. He was kind to us last year.
And as I've stated, it's an 8 p.m. kickoff tonight under the stars and the new LED lights inside Bryant-Denny Stadium. Since 1997, Tennessee and Alabama played just one night game in Tuscaloosa. Linebacker Terrell Lewis says for the Tide's first night game of the season, the players are pumped.
Being out again in a night game, it's been a minute since we kind of played a night game, and then those lights, I feel like a lot of times those night games, we feed off the energy off the crowd and just the atmosphere.
And Terrell Lewis isn't the only one excited for a night game. Fans are excited too. They're jacked up, and not just for the game under the lights, but also for the new lights. They're going to be different tonight. Alabama Athletics has been previewing the LED light show all season on social media, but this evening will be the first time it will officially debut. CTKO's Julia Westerman is live on the Walk of Champions. And Julia, you caught up with fans this week. What did they have to say about the new light show debuting tonight?
Thanks, Gary. It's no secret Crimson Tide fans have been waiting to have a game in Bryant-Denny after dark. I had a chance to catch up with fans and students this week and find out what they're looking forward to most in tonight's matchup with Tennessee.
Alabama fans have been patiently waiting all season long for a night game, and the day has finally come. After starting the season with almost all midday kickoff times, the Crimson Tide is getting to see some action under the lights. Fans and students alike are looking forward to seeing the LED lights installed in Bryant-Denny Stadium, something they have only had the opportunity to see in video. The fact that it is Tennessee game week is only making it sweeter.
The night game is kind of rare to us, so having that rarity to our Tennessee game is really cool. Even though, it's been like thousands of days since Tennessee beat us, it's still like such a cool tradition here, and those are the traditions that draw people here coming back again and again.
For some people, this is their first night game. For others, this is their first game ever. The Zwart brothers brought their father to Tuscaloosa this weekend as a Christmas present, and he is looking forward to more than just the kickoff time.
I've been trying to come here forever, and so this is my first game here. Been a fan forever. They don't let me put all my Alabama stuff up all over the house, so I'm really excited to be here.
Earlier in the season, students struggled with being able to stay for 4 quarters because of the heat. Now, as temperatures cool off and the Tide gets further into SEC play, students are excited to see something different.
It's a whole new experience. Get to bring Tennessee down here, get a big dub. It's just a fun experience under the lights.
Now, Tennessee is not going to be the only night game Tide fans get to experience this season. Alabama's homecoming game next weekend versus Arkansas has a 6:30 p.m. kickoff, ensuring fans have another opportunity to be bathed in crimson light. Live from the Walk of Champions, Julia Westerman, back to you, Gary.
Thank you, Julia. Very enlightening feature right there. Coming up, our first guest will join us, and he'll be talking about the impact that home football games have on Tuscaloosa and West Alabama. Stay with us. You won't want to miss it. It's coming up next on CTKO. And we're back here on Crimson Tide Kickoff, presented by Alpha Insurance. I'm Gary Harris, joined now by a special guest, President and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce of West Alabama. Jim Page is with us. Jim, good to see you, man.
Hey, Gary, good to see you.
We're going to talk a number of subjects, but one of the biggest, of course, is financial impact. These Alabama football games, I mean, clearly it's these 6 or 7 weekends, some of the biggest of the year in Tuscaloosa and West Alabama. And for the Chamber of Commerce, it's a great opportunity to show off all the great work that you're doing here.
No question. Days like today just are one of the many reasons you want to live in Tuscaloosa, live in this area. You know, just an average home football game can hover around $20 million in direct economic impact. It's substantial. But a bigger game, a bigger rivalry game like today with Tennessee, or one that has conference or national championship implications like LSU in a few weeks, that can be well north of $20 million. And that's direct economic impact. That's people staying in our hotels, eating in a restaurant, shopping in stores, and so that's great for the business community here. But the ancillary impact of national and international exposure, the PR that Alabama football brings to this community, we couldn't afford that kind of press. And so Alabama football is a huge economic benefit to this community.
I'm glad you mentioned that too, because it's not just the financial impact, it's the imaging. As you said tonight, prime time on ESPN, all eyes will be on Tuscaloosa, that LSU game in a few weeks. As you said, it would cost, you're bringing in millions, but it would cost millions to get that type of advertising, and really it's free.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what Coach Saban has done, just elevating the brand of the university. We all know it's a great university from an academic perspective, but how he's elevated the brand from football and then all of the other sports and athletics here, it's just incredible, and it's great for business.
Speaking of elevating, elevate Tuscaloosa.
We are elevating.
What does that mean for the Chamber of Commerce?
Well, it's great. We applaud Mayor Maddox and his vision for trying to take our community to the next level, not resting on our laurels. This is a great community already. We have a lot of great things going, but he's had a vision for the future about investing in our parks and our recreation and all the quality of life type things that make this a great place to live. And so over the next several years, you're going to see tens of millions of dollars invested in this community, and I think we're going to rival any other university town in this country for one. But we're going to be a real shining example of what you can do when you work hard and you put your money to good use.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. This community is growing. This campus has exploded over the last 20 years, and I know some people get frustrated, but infrastructure is trying to catch up. A lot of that's with road improvements. Obviously, there's a lot of things going on. I know for people sometimes it's like, man, is this ever going to be finished? And everybody that's involved, the city, the county, Chamber of Commerce, you're working hard to get it done, but it's got to be done.
We are. We've had the great problem in this community over the last few years of outgrowing our infrastructure. A lot of communities would love to have that problem, but it is a problem nonetheless. And so, again, I'm really proud of the public and private leaders of this community coming together and really to invest in our infrastructure, particularly roads. We laugh that we're going to be the orange cone capital of the state for the foreseeable future. But a lot of people are frustrated by that. I see that as progress. It means we've got road construction going on, and once all that's over and once we get past the headaches, we're going to have one of the finest road network systems, especially in the state, but in the country. And I'm really proud of that, and it's going to help this campus and this university continue to grow because it's going to be easier to navigate.
Absolutely. Of course, as Tuscaloosa's grown, there are more specialty grocery stores and wine bars and great little neat eclectic bars and restaurants, and of course a lot of Bama fans are planning on lighting up a stogie tonight after the game, and there's some terrific cigar bars here too.
Well, it just so happens that I brought one today. But we do have some great cigar establishments in this community, and actually a good friend of mine picked this up for me yesterday. That's one of the great traditions of the Alabama-Tennessee rivalry, is lighting up a cigar, and it's going to be pretty late when we do it tonight. But between the light show in the stadium and the cigar cigar smoke. Oh, what a great time to be at Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Bama fans are going to be all lit up. More ways than one,
No
that's
doubt.
for sure. Thank
No
you,
doubt.
Jim.
Hey, Gary, thank you.
All right, we'll come back with much more here on Crimson Tide Kickoff. You stay tuned. We'll be back right after this.
Yeah, we were at the indoor facility one day doing a 2-minute drill, but Greg McElroy rolled out. I tried to back up. He hit me, and I went backward. I hit my head. Honestly, it didn't hurt, but I was lying there on the thing, and I remember looking up. I seen I couldn't say anything, and Coach Saban was apparently about right there on me, and he was looking at me, and I was trying to say something. I couldn't say anything. I remember Saban saying, "Is he dead?" They said, "No, he's okay." He said, "Well, get on with the practice, drag him off." But it never did hurt me. But I came to practice the next day, and I really think that impressed him, because he really thought I was hurt bad. And he come back to practice. He had me a jersey. If you're injured, you have a black jersey on the practice. He had me a black jersey made up with my name on it.
He's tough, man. That's one of our favorite segments here on CTKO. Mr. Eddie Conyers, what a treat. Now, the last time Tennessee beat Alabama was 2006 in Neyland Stadium. The Vols won that game by a field goal. That was also the last time Tennessee fans got to fire up their cigars. CTKO's Alessandro Pontbriand has more on this unique tradition.
The last time Tennessee beat Alabama, you couldn't tweet about the game. iPhones didn't exist. A lot has changed since 2006, but one thing that hasn't is the tradition of the winner lighting up cigars. Vitola Fine Cigars owner Harris Saunders says he has many memories of the third Saturday in October.
I always remember it being, one of the biggest games of the year. If you're an Alabama fan, it's one of the biggest rivalries, and then over the years, the cigar tradition growing and growing.
The whiff of lit cigars started in the 1950s when the Crimson Tide's head athletic trainer and Tennessee alum Jim Goosetree began handing out cigars after each victory over the Vols. Saunders says this week he sees an increase in business because for some, buying a cigar is a yearly tradition.
It is a unique tradition. I feel like there aren't many things like this, and I think it's something everyone's just stayed excited about. It's something unique, something different to do, and a lot of people, it's their one cigar a year they try. And
with so many different cigars to choose from, I thought, why not go with this one? It's gold and it looks celebratory. Its name is Perdomo Champagne. This started as a secret because of NCAA rules, but in 2005, Alabama publicly started smoking cigars. And since then, the winning team knowingly violates the NCAA tobacco rules in honor of tradition. For Crimson Tide Kickoff, I'm Alessandra Pontbriand.
Yeah, I remember a time there for a while when they weren't lighting them up, which really takes away from what it's all about. All right, you saw Jim Goosetree there. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us, but his son, Jimmy Tom Goosetree, is. And to remember his dad and remember the cigar tradition. How are you doing, buddy?
Doing well.
Listen, we saw that piece, good piece by Alessandra, but I want you to tell us, because, your dad talked about it. Exactly. He had gone to Tennessee. Ken Donahue had gone to Tennessee. Coach Bryant couldn't beat Tennessee when he was at Kentucky. Couldn't beat Coach Neyland, General Neyland. So that was a rivalry that Coach Bryant, when he got to Alabama, he wanted to take control in. Tell us how that cigar tradition started with your dad.
Well, Gary, I'm not exactly sure. We came to Tuscaloosa in 1958. Coach Ayers Whitworth's last year, so Coach Bryant came. Well, actually, it's 57 when we were here. Coach Bryant came in 58. They may have started that tradition that very year, 58. I remember as a small child sitting on Mom and Dad's bed watching Dad pack suitcase Friday afternoons to whether the game was in Birmingham or in Knoxville, and he would load up the Tampa Jewel box and the Tampa Nuggets, and then as the rosters grew, he would take the cigar boxes and put them in trunks that would be on the trucks that would go to the game site. But I never, although I grew up on the sidelines, I never was in a dressing room where they were smoking cigars. But it was always, back during the 60s and 70s, publicly you never heard that much about it. It was very private. It was something between Dad, Coach Bryant. Dad would buy the cigars, give them to Coach Bryant after the win, and Coach Bryant would pass them out in the dressing rooms. Most of them were smoked, but a few of them were taken home by the players as souvenirs. But since then, I can't exactly say when it reached the level that it has now.
Yeah, it's just part of it. It's Coach Howard Schnellenberger and that thing.
Yeah.
Hey, I think I've heard some people ask me about Coach Goosetree, and they'd be like, man, why would he take so much pleasure in beating his alma mater? He loved his alma mater. But that's the nature of when you play someone you love in sports, you want to beat them even more. Plus, as you said, he knew what that rivalry meant to Coach Bryant. He couldn't beat Coach Nealon at Kentucky, so when he got to Alabama, he wanted to take control. But I don't think there was any doubt Coach Goosetree loved his alma mater, but he loved Alabama more.
Well, he knew about... Of course, he's a graduate from the University of Tennessee and worked under General Nealon as an assistant trainer. Played college golf there as well, so he was aware of the Alabama-Tennessee rivalry while he was there at Tennessee. But once he came here and Coach Bryant got here, I can remember one day Mom and Dad were cleaning out a closet in kind of the laundry room area, and there was about 3 or 4 letter sweaters there from Tennessee. And rather than keeping them, he threw them away. But to Coach Bryant and Dad, Tennessee was the biggest rivalry of the year. It was incredible. It was just being in the training room. It was just a different week.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that the focus was any different, but it's just a little bit higher level of intensity through that.
11 in a row, Coach Bryant won at one time. Coach Saban's trumped that by 1 and going for 13 tonight. Good to see you, Jimmy Tom.
Gary, thank you so much.
Great stories. All right, coming up, the Byrne Point with Athletics Director Greg Byrne. That's next, followed by an interview with Alabama women's basketball coach Christy Curry. Walk of Champions. Listen, it's quiet now, but game time is still, 8.5 hours away. That's why. It'll start filling up here on campus soon. You keep it tuned to CTKO.
You're watching Crimson Tide Kickoff on WVUA 23.
Welcome in to this week's edition of the Byrne Point. I'm Gary Harris, joined by Alabama Director of Athletics Greg Byrne. And this week we're going to discuss football and the impact that it has on the athletic department, the university, the city of Tuscaloosa, the state of Alabama. It's that big of an enterprise, and clearly the goal here is to win in all sports. But it does start with football. It's the most visible program. It is the most successful program in college football history, and it kind of does set a tone for everything.
It does. It does. Football's the engine that pulls the train. It's the reality, and we have such incredible history. We live under historical times right now that we cannot take for granted. And at the same time, too, the game is evolving and changing in many aspects, and so it's important that we think along those lines of what's ahead for the health of our program and what we do. So we've been trying to balance all those things in our decision making, what takes place. Obviously, I was a child when I first living in the West when I knew who Bear Bryant was and what he meant to the game of football, the state of Alabama, the University of Alabama. And then we have had, obviously the run that Coach Stallings had during his time here. And then, there was some ups and downs, as we know, as a program. And then with the arrival of Coach Saban and when Dr. Witt and Mal hired him and what he has brought to our university, our athletic program, our football program, but like you said, the state of Alabama, the game of football. And until you're here, Gary, I think you agree, you just don't, it's hard to grasp. One of my favorite stories is, I'll be brief with it, but Bob Baffert, who's the best horse trainer in the world. I used to be at the University of Arizona, and he's an alum, and when it got announced that I was coming to Alabama, he called me the next day, and he dog-cussed me for 30 seconds, and then he said, but by the way, Nick Saban is my hero. And I said, really? I said, Bob, you're the best at what you do in the world. And he said, he's the only person I can relate to that has the same expectations that I do, that you're supposed to win what takes place. How fortunate are we for that? And so I think one of the things as we've gone through this incredible run with Coach Saban, and what he has shown is he continues to walk the walk. He has not taken his foot off the gas pedal. And it's important for us as a department, it's important for our fan base to continue to be there, and our fans do such an incredible job, and we're so fortunate for. But we also know, because of television and other things, how people consume athletics, how people consume football continues to change. And it wasn't too long when I was fortunate to come here that Coach Saban and I started talking about football scheduling. And the neutral games have been a great thing for our program, put us on a stage that almost nobody else has had. And at the same time, too, I think our fans are saying, hey, we'd like to see some more of these back in our community. And so, to Coach Saban's credit, he's evolved with that, just like he has as a coach in many aspects of coaching the game. We've also tried to evolve in what's taking place to get some games here in Tuscaloosa that are going to be unique and different, that will still put us on the national stage, maybe in a different way than what we've had before. But I think everybody will be excited. I think in 2022, when we go to Texas, I assume there will be a lot of Crimson there. That'll be a lot of energy. Even if some of the Crimson can't get inside the stadium, they'll be there. They'll be there in force. And I think the next year when Texas is back here in Tuscaloosa, it'll be the same type of mentality and passion and interest in what takes place. So that's continued to evolve. But we've seen the city of Tuscaloosa and the outlying areas that have greatly benefited from the historical run we've been on. And so what we need to do is do everything we can to keep performing at those levels, just like Coach Saban and the program have done.
Yeah, the future schedules are exciting. We're wrapping up, but you're a man of vision. You have to be as an AD, and the program is so healthy right now. But just based on what you said, you're looking years ahead, even to the time when Nick Saban isn't the head football coach at the University of Alabama anymore.
And hopefully that's a long time from now. And I think we hopefully have an opportunity for him to continue coaching for a while. But we need to make sure when he is done that I'm not sitting across from whoever we hope to be the next football coach and saying, I know your infrastructure. I know maybe you're doing some things that we aren't. We need to be ready. We need to be already at the front of the line in what takes place in college football. Coach Saban expects that and demands that, and we need to make sure we're following up with that. And very much our decision making and what we're trying to do long term is focused on that.
Thank you. For Greg Byrne, I'm Gary Harris. This has been the Byrne Point. And we're back on Crimson Tide Kickoff, presented by Alpha Insurance. I'm Gary Harris, joined by University of Alabama women's basketball coach Christy Curry. Time flies. Good to see you, Coach, first of all.
Good to see you too, Gary, always.
This is your 7th season.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's been fun, hasn't it?
It has, and you got a lot of enthusiasm going into this season. Last year was a tough one.
It was.
14, 17 injuries, including Jordan Lewis, one of the best point guards in the country. It was just one of those Murphy's Law type of seasons.
It was. We lost 3 kids to broken bones, and I've never had that before. And, it does affect you. It's with our game with only 15 scholarships and playing time on the line, kids want to come in and play, so your backup's never as good as your starter. And it really hurt us a little bit depth-wise. We were starting to walk on at the end of the year.
Yeah. Now you move on. Tide tip-off last night kind of got people pumped up, and basketball is right around the corner. But a really good event last night. Student attendance was good, and look, you guys had a lot of fun.
We did. Marketing did a tremendous job with it. We appreciate their staff. We had a lot of students and fans come out and had a block party before the game, and it was a lot of fun. Our kids enjoyed it. You'll see we got some personality on our team, so they enjoyed it and did a great job. I still can't figure out who the best dancer was, but Meg might be in the lead with Daisha second. I got to go back and watch.
Schedule-wise, basketball, I remember when you didn't start practice until October 15th. You didn't play until nearly Thanksgiving. Not the case now. You got exhibition games coming up. It's right around the corner.
It is. We're 16 practices in, be number 17 today, and 30 or 40 days from our first playing dates now when we can practice. And so October 15th is not like it used to be, but we're ahead of the pace we'd like to be and excited where we are. We're healthy. We're deep. We're big. We feel like we have our best team, and we just need to stay healthy and take it one day at a time and get better.
Yeah, you got a good mix on the roster, some good returners that we'll talk about in a moment, but a lot of new faces.
We do. We have some new faces. We return 84% of our scoring, which is really important. And, to add to that mix, you've got Brittany Davis, who's really shooting the ball well for us, a transfer. Initially committed to Mississippi State and went to Florida Gulf Coast and was freshman of the year in that league, and so she's got 3 years left. And then we added Amber Richardson, a transfer from NC State. Amber just brings a lot of maturity and hustle. And then Shelby Gibson's a 6'3" post player, 6'4" in the middle from Ole Miss, and had 8 double-digit games in the SEC. And she's a power and a force to be reckoned with. So the competition at each spot is really making our team better.
And real quickly, Jordan Lewis went down with a wrist in December. That was horrible, but she went down at least early enough to get a red shirt. So she's got 2 years. And with her and Sierra Johnson, you got as good a backcourt maybe as anybody.
Well, we do, you know, and you add Megan Abrams in there, who is really maybe the most improved player on our team. And, you know, Brittany Davis and Amber Richardson. Our backcourt has a chance to really be good. Hannah Barber is improved. We've got a freshman from Toronto, Canada, named Ari Grizzle. So a lot of competition in the backcourt, and it's really made our team better every day, like I said earlier.
Looking forward to it, Coach.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank
we appreciate you. Roll Tide.
Crimson Tide Kickoff will return right after this break. Keep it tuned right here at WVUA 23. And welcome back to CTKO. I'm Gary Harris, live on the University of Alabama campus. Just, what are we now? A little more than 8 hours away between the kickoff of Alabama and Tennessee. Well, Alabama head coach Nick Saban owns a coaching advantage at just about every stop he's made in college football, including an incredible mark here at Alabama. He's won 50 of his last 52 games at Bryant-Denny. That's an impressive streak and a nice one for recruits to hear. You better believe they hear it too. Have you ever wondered what Bama recruits get to see during a game day? CTKO's Julia Daniels had the chance to follow along during a recent Crimson Tide Access Tour.
An Alabama football game is an experience in itself, but Crimson Tide Access gives you the opportunity to see Bryant-Denny from a whole new perspective. Bryant-Denny Stadium is no secret to anyone who knows college football. However, many people don't know about the Friday facility tours offered to the public before home games. These tours take you through the stadium and give you an experience similar to that of a recruit. Alex Slocum, a grad assistant for Crimson Tide Sports Marketing, enjoys having the opportunity to give people the behind-the-scenes look she wished she'd had growing up.
I love being able to give people experiences. It's something. Going to games is not just about getting a ticket and going to see the fans. It's about making an experience and being able to show that with your family and being able to kind of relay that throughout your life, take the pictures, and you'll always be able to remember it. So giving somebody a tour and having them come in, I was a super fan. I've been a fan for forever. So being able to give somebody what I would have wanted whenever I was little makes my day.
The tour starts in the recruiting room and moves to the media room, where Nick Saban does his post-game interviews. Guests then take a staircase with large displays of championship rings down to the locker room. Then the group heads down the tunnel the team takes on game day and up to the stands for a closer look at the field. The $25 tour has Alabama fans ecstatic about the special access they get to the traditions of Alabama football.
I saw this on YouTube and I was like, oh my God, I totally got to come here. So it's part of the, not the game day visit as well, but trying to show my daughter there's a lot more to the university.
Friday facility tours occur every Friday before a home game from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. And you can book one by going to rolltide.com/Crimson Tide Access. For Crimson Tide Kickoff, I'm Julia Daniels.
Thank you, Julia. Excellent job. Well, Tennessee's wide receiver Juwan Jennings ranks 6th in touchdown receptions and 8th in receiving yards in the SEC. Alabama wide receiver Devontae Smith is tied for 3rd in the nation in receiving touchdowns. Receivers from both teams will try to put on a show tonight. Let's look more at the Alabama offense, which is dominant so far this season with quarterback Tua Tagovailoa and a receiving core that pretty much can make explosive plays at any time. It'll be hard for the Tennessee defense to slow them down. Alabama extended its streak last week for consecutive games with a score to 248. Wow. Receiver Henry Ruggs has accumulated 22 touchdown receptions during his career, averaging 39 yards per touchdown. Tennessee head coach Jeremy Pruitt says it's difficult to find a weakness with this Bama offense.
Starts with having a plan. Got to have a good plan. Got to know who their playmakers are, which I think everybody does, right? You know, they stretch you all over the field. You got to be able to take something away, you know. You got to be able to play in space. You got to tackle in space. I mean, do they throw the ball down the field? Sure they do. When you look at them throwing the football, you know, they throw the RPO game a lot.
Now let's talk about that Alabama defense. Most people have talked about the struggles of the defense this season. As they know, they haven't shut out teams the way that a lot of Bama fans want them to. They did have a career-high 5 sacks, or a team-high 5 sacks against the Aggies last week. 2 more than they had in a single game so far this season. Now down the road, Alabama knows they'll have to play much better than how they've performed so far, because the competition coming up is really going to be tough.
We got to improve on that, stopping the run. I feel we lacking that just a little bit, but every day we just try to get better and improve on it. Just build off the momentum that we kind of established. I feel like even as a defense as a whole, we started off slow, played inconsistent at times, kind of a little bit undisciplined. So we did play some good football, but I definitely feel like there's a bunch of room to improve and build off of.
Indeed. I think this Alabama defense is really starting to come into its own. Let's take a look at the Associated Press top 25 teams for Week 8. Look at the top 2 teams from the SEC. Alabama tops the polls again. LSU's number 2. Then it's Clemson, Ohio State, Jalen Hurts and the Sooners round out the top 5. Wisconsin is at number 6. Penn State checks in at number 7. They've got Michigan today. Notre Dame, Florida, and Georgia round out the top 10. So still 4 SEC teams in the top 10. And Auburn checking in at number 11. But that's the only SEC team in those spots 11 through 20. Tigers are followed by Oregon, a team they beat, Utah, Boise State, Texas, Michigan, Arizona State, Baylor, SMU, and Minnesota. Rounding out the poll, Cincinnati, Missouri from the SEC, Iowa, look at Appalachian State, and Washington checks in at number 25. Well, we know the Tide and the Vols are an SEC matchup, but what about the rest of the Southeastern Conference on this Saturday? CTKO's Alessandra Patbrian is live in our studio for a quick look around the SEC. Alessandra?
Gary, it's a packed day of conference play around the SEC. All 14 teams are in action as they're battling through mid-season. Let's take a look. We've got a pair of games already underway. Auburn's taking on the Arkansas Razorbacks in Reynolds Razorback Stadium. The Tigers coming off a bye week. Also underway in Columbia, the Florida Gators are in town to take on the hosting South Carolina Gamecocks. Kicking off at 2:30 will be LSU and Mississippi State over in Stark Vegas. Then at 3 p.m., the Missouri Tigers take a trip to the Music City to face the winless in SEC play Vanderbilt Commodores. And then at 5, Kentucky travels to Georgia for an SEC East tilt with the Bulldogs. An hour and a half before Bama and Tennessee in Vaught-Hemingway Stadium, Ole Miss hosts the Texas A&M Aggies. Jimbo Fisher and company are looking to redeem themselves from last week's loss. So it's a competitive day around the conference where all 7 games will have high stakes on the SEC standings. Right now, Missouri is leading the SEC East, and LSU and Alabama, they're tied for first in the West. I'll be curious to see how today's action unfolds. And of course, who could forget the Crimson Tide and the Volunteers, the SEC game of the week tonight at 8 p.m. Back to you, Gary.
Well, thank you, Alessandra, for taking us around the league. We're almost done here on CTKO, but not quite. When we come back, we'll talk about Nick Saban's success against unranked opponents. Stay with us here on Crimson Tide Kickoff. And welcome back to Crimson Tide Kickoff, presented by Alpha Insurance. I'm Gary Harris. The Tennessee Volunteers are unranked. They've been that way all season. For Alabama head coach Nick Saban, unranked usually equals no problem. Alabama has defeated 87 consecutive unranked teams under Saban, which is the longest streak in FBS history. The Crimson Tide's last loss to a team not ranked in the AP poll was in 2007, Saban's first year to in-state rival Auburn. They also lost to Monroe that year. In total, Alabama holds a 91-3 mark against unranked opponents while coached by Nick Saban. All 3 of those losses came in 2007. Well, last week the coach beat a former assistant for the 18th time. This week he's trying to extend his unbeaten streak against former assistant coaches to 19. This is the 3rd time this season Saban will play a former assistant after beating South Carolina with Will Muschamp and Texas A&M last week with Jimbo Fisher. Tennessee head coach Jeremy Pruitt was a member of Alabama staff for the first time from 2007 to 2012. And then returned in 2016 for 2 more seasons. And he isn't the only former assistant Saban is playing against today. Tennessee defensive coordinator Derek Ansley also coached during the Saban era. And, of course, Pruitt played here as well. And the Tide's head coach speaks highly of Derek Ansley's coaching ability and what he's doing with the orange and white defense.
I think he's done a really good job. You know, we've always thought a lot of DA. I don't see a whole lot of different stuff. They do a few things, I guess, a little different, but I see a lot of the same things that are things that are similar to what we do here. But I'm sure I tell you what, they're extremely well coached, regardless of what they're doing, and I definitely think that he's probably contributed, a great deal to that.
Nice and cool outside today. A little bit of wind. First home game this season that will be played with cool temperatures and at night. How does the weather look for fans tailgating today, Chelsea?
Well, Gary, it's looking great. Certainly no triple-digit heat indexes today. Much cooler weather and much more like sweater weather. As we take a look at that futurecast, we've had some rain over the past few hours, but you can see as we go into the afternoon and by game time, that rain's going to be clearing out. And hey, look, the skies will be clearing out as well. Hey, and here's our game day forecast. You see, we're going to be 68 by 3 p.m., but we're going to dwindle down into those 50s by 11 p.m. So hopefully we'll end with a win as well.
Thank you so much, Chelsea. That's going to do it for us here on Crimson Tide Kickoff, presented by our good friends at Alpha Insurance. On behalf of all of us here at WVUA 23, I'm Gary Harris saying thanks for tuning in this afternoon ahead of Alabama and Tennessee tonight. Have a great day, everybody. Roll Tide.